Hi everybody and welcome to another video. My name is Beautiful Joy and thank you so much for tuning in to another video, guys. Well, in this video I wanted to share a personal testimony of mine that recently just happened. This is something that's really fresh and new, and I knew I was going to have to share this particular testimony as soon as possible because it's so amazing, and I know that this testimony is going to help a lot of women, and I know God wants me to share this testimony. Okay, so real quick though, before I go into it, a real quick warning. I may be, well, I know I will, I'll be sharing some like graphic information, some personal things. So just a quick warning if you don't want to hear that type of stuff, just a quick warning. So you may have to turn this video off. If not, if you want to continue listening, that's great. But yeah, I'm going to be sharing some information, a little graphic, but I know it's really going to help people, and it's going to just remove any questions you may have, just to avoid that by just giving you just a little bit more detail and more in depth of what really happened. So you guys, oops, excuse me, I'm thirsty. Something amazing happened out of something that was so bad. Like, and that's what God does, right? He can take a bad situation and make something totally good out of it. So before I go into what happened, God allowed this miracle to happen in my life. But before I tell you the exact day it happened, we have to kind of go back a little bit. Okay. So I'm a mom, I'm a wife. We have 3 boys. Our boys are all teenagers now. They're 13, 15, and 17. And yeah, so back in 2013, I was working at Sears department store, and I was working like part-time while my kids were in school. I was working at this one mall in the city that they went to school in, and I was close by, even though we lived in a different city. I was close by, so I could be close to my kids. So if anything came up, I would have a way to get to them, and I'll just be really close to the school. That's why I chose to work there. So I wasn't even there for too long, too. But I want to say 2012. No. Man, what year was that? I'm going to have to do some research. But it was either 2011. I don't know why I can't remember. Let's just put it this way. It's 2021. So let me see. I feel like I need to do the math here real quick. I was working at this department store, I want to say I was there for about a year. Okay, so let's just say about I want to say like 8 to 9 years ago, I was working at this department store, because this is the beginning of a change that I saw in my body that led up to this miracle, you guys. So yeah, so around that time, I'm working at the department store and I'm running this particular department. They had gave me a promotion to lead this one particular department in the store. And so I started having really bad bleeding, like to the point where I bled for 10 weeks, just to keep it straightforward and to the point. For 10 weeks, you guys, and I had never, ever experienced anything like that ever. Like bleeding for 10 weeks straight, you know? And so, as a woman, that's so frustrating because I never really liked to wear like maxi pads because they're just so uncomfortable. So, I was at work and busy and I had to like keep going to the bathroom. It was just a lot. For 10 weeks, that's a lot of bleeding. And I wouldn't say that it was super heavy. to the point where I felt like it was life-threatening, but it did get kind of heavy towards the end. And then I wind up being taken to the emergency room by my husband, and I just couldn't take it anymore. And so I remember telling my supervisor, she was like, "Oh, you probably have fibroids. You probably, that's probably the issue." But I was thinking, I don't think so because I don't have any pain. And that was like my initial thought on that. Like, how can I have fibroids? I don't have any pain. I just have like all this bleeding, right? And so, yeah, it was just a frustrating time because no woman wants to go to work worrying about if I get blood all over myself or on my clothes. You're trying to work and do your job, and it was just so irritating and frustrating. But anyway, I remember she told me that, and I was like, no, I don't think so. Because, like I said, I'm not in any pain. And so I had told her, this was my supervisor at the time, because you have to like give your job like a 2 weeks advance notice if you need like some time off, some days off. So that's why I confronted her. She was like, "Oh yeah, you need to go get that checked out." She was really cool, really nice supervisor that I was working under. So she was like, "Okay, that's fine. Just do what you need to do. Hope you feel better and all that." And so I remember I had an appointment with my OBGYN at the time. Oh, I missed this lady so much because she was my favorite OBGYN. And she was there for me with all 3 of our kids. Well, she didn't deliver our first kid because we were with Kaiser at the time. So with this new insurance under her, what do you call it? Under her medical group, we met her when our oldest was still in what do you call it? A baby car seat. And so we wind up having 2 more kids after that. So she was with us through like a long time and some years, and she was just the nicest lady. But unfortunately, because insurance changes, I can no longer see her at the moment. But yeah, she was an excellent OBGYN, wonderful lady. And I made an appointment with her, and I think that's why I took the time off. But I wind up going to the emergency room beforehand because I noticed the bleeding was getting heavier, and I felt kind of weak. So I went to the emergency. My husband takes me. Okay, so they did all these tests, right? And they did a vaginal ultrasound. And I remember the exam, the lady that was doing the exam, she was very, very nice, very, very gentle, really concerned, genuinely concerned. So I just knew there was not going to be any fibroids in my mind, and I want to trust God and have faith too at the same time. And she did the vaginal ultrasound, and she didn't find anything. And she was really surprised, like from everything that I was describing that I was going through. She just automatically thought, wow, yeah, this could be possibly fibroids, right? And so I got the clear after that I wasn't having any, there was no fibroids, and I was excited. But I remember the emergency room doctor did tell me, you have a thickening of the wall of your uterus, thickening. And that's a little unusual, and you need to make an appointment with your doctor, your OBGYN, and maybe it's just your hormones. So I was thinking, okay, maybe it's just more hormones. Okay, so, man, this is such a learning experience too, because, see, my husband works in radiology. Well, he used to. He didn't work as a tech where they actually, he did the x-rays. He just worked in the department doing the office management, and he was there for almost 20 years before he got laid off at the beginning of 2019. But he understands like the whole logistics of radiology. And looking back now, I should have got a second opinion, or they should have did some more tests, or I should have went back for more scans because years passed, right? So okay, so after that visit at the ER, I went home and I was thinking, okay, that's great, that's wonderful. I don't have fibroids. So I thought I was just like in the clear with that, like, thank God I don't have fibroids, right? And so the very next morning when I woke up, I had this really bad gush of blood. Like, I would never forget that because I literally had to run to the bathroom and just trying to put something between my legs really quick because it was just so unexpected. And I think the bleeding at that point kind of calmed down some. But when I woke up the next morning, it was like, whoosh, and I didn't feel weak or anything, but it was a lot. And I was just like, it was just like a quick gush. And I don't recall bleeding like throughout the whole day, like that, where I had to go back to the ER because you always want to watch the bleeding. If anything, if you have any type of bleeding, you got to watch it because, we just can't lose that much blood. And so I remember telling my husband, like, oh my gosh, like, what's going on? Why is this happening? And, the years passed and I continued having in-between bleeding between periods. I did eventually see my OBGYN and she did run some tests. She even checked my thyroid. But she did want to run a uterine biopsy. Okay, but I did not wind up getting that done. To keep a long story short regarding that, we went through a lot of insurance changes because my husband's job, they kept changing the insurance. And so there was an issue with that. And then I remember she did a Pap smear and everything came out clear. And she did a pelvic exam. And she did encourage me to lose some weight though at that time because she hadn't seen me in a while. So a long time had passed. And looking back on that, I know that was God because she was just genuinely concerned, trying to motivate me because she did notice I had picked up quite a bit of weight. And, because she was doing the pelvic exam, so she had to feel down on my pelvic area and check. And I'm a lot heavier than what, how she seen me previously the years before that. So, she was genuinely concerned and really was trying to motivate me to start walking. And because we were just having a conversation, I think I was telling her I wanted to start walking and all that. So yeah, she was really motivating me to do that, and I took it as some good advice. Looking back now, like, I see how God was using her. She was just such a blessing. Like, I really miss this lady. Like, it's so important to have a good OBGYN, especially someone you're comfortable with, right? And she was it. And I was just so blessed to have her as my doctor. But I don't remember the circumstances of me not going back because I should have went back. Looking back now, I see how everything lines up right now, leading up to what happened recently. And we're going to get to that in a second. I'm not going to keep you guys waiting too long, but I just want to give you kind of like that backstory because you're going to see how it leads up to the miracle. Okay, so I remember she ordered a biopsy. She did a Pap, I mentioned. That was clear. I remember her being on the phone with her. She was like, your test results for the Pap smear is fine, but we need to get that biopsy. And I don't remember why I didn't go back to do the biopsy. And I really wanted that done. I had never, ever had a uterine biopsy, like never. And so I know they test you because they want to check the health of your uterus. And, there's uterine cancer and there's other issues. And so a long time went past. And I just recently had a Pap smear, you guys. And these results came back totally fine. Cervix is all good to go. There's nothing there, no cancer, no issues with that. Like, just literally a few weeks ago. Okay, so the in-between bleeding is not a good sign, you guys. It's not. You never want to have in-between bleeding between your periods. Okay, so I had a vaginal birth for our first child. The second two kids, the second child was an emergency cesarean because he was breached. His feet were first. So that was my first time ever having any type of surgery ever in my life, right? And so when we had our third, I wind up getting the cesarean because once they do a cesarean, they're going to do another one. And my doctor warned me before we gave birth to our third child. She was like, I don't even want to discuss any type of vaginal birth because it's too risky and you're gonna have a scheduled C-section. And then we started talking about like birth control, and then I wind up right towards the end of my pregnancy, I decided I wanted to do the tubal ligation. So I did the tubal ligation. So my tubes, my fallopian tubes were cut. Each one of them were cut and sealed. And this procedure was done during the C-section. So in 2007, I had the tubal ligation in my last cesarean. That was the year our last child was born. That was December 17th of 2007. I did notice some changes to my menstrual cycle. And you know, I breastfed. And I know that can have changes to your menstrual flow. But I did notice some changes, like my period taking longer than usual to come. Instead of every 28 days, it was like every 34 days. I even had a time it was like every 40 days. And it was just so strange to me because before any type of surgery, or even before put it this way, before our third child, I always had a period that was every month, every 28 days. Nothing heavy, you guys. I forgot to mention that. As a teenager, I started my period like in the 7th grade. I must have been 12 or 13. Always just regular, normal period. I used to have the cramps from hell, literally, but that stopped once we had our first child. And I don't know if you guys ever heard of cramps kind of like just going away altogether once you have kids, and that's exactly what happened to me. So thank God for that, because those cramps, man, those cramps were torture. And I don't know if it was from a vitamin deficiency, now that I'm learning more about how our body works now as an adult 40 years later. It could have been. So I kind of heard about that, like it could be a vitamin deficiency while you have cramps, or just from our diet as well. It's a lot that goes into that. That's another video. But yeah, so what was I saying? So my periods were really, really normal. So to have an abnormal thing happen, it really stood out. And so I did notice some changes. I don't know if it was because of the tubal ligation in December of 2007. Could be. There's a possibility, but I didn't have in-between bleeding around that time. So the in-between bleeding, I don't really know what year that started, but I want to take it back to that time I was telling you guys when I was working at Sears, and I had the 10 weeks of bleeding, and I think it kind of started around that time, the in-between bleeding, like every period, which was super annoying. I can just be out somewhere, not on my period's gone, and I would bleed a lot during my ovulation period as well. You know, we ovulate for 2 weeks, right? And so I noticed a lot of bleeding around that time. Not a lot, but just spotting all the time. And that went on for years, you guys. And super, super annoying, right? Like, who wants to bleed like that all the time? And sometimes it would just hit me. I could be at the store. I could be in the car, waiting in line somewhere. And boom, you know, like I would just have like this gush. And a lot of times it was very light, but just always constantly. And there's a medical term for that. Let's see. It's so hard for me to pronounce it, but I'm gonna look it up. What's the medical term for bleeding for women? Oh, hey Siri. What is the medical term for in between bleeding for women?
Okay, I found this on the web for what is the medical term for it between bleeding for women. Check it out.
Is it Amino? Let me see. Amino. I'm not sure. Can you guys see this? That's the medical term right there for in between bleeding, right? Between heavy menstrual bleeding, or it's heavy menstrual bleeding, or just, okay, so it's a medical term for menstrual periods with abnormally heavy or prolonged bleeding. Although heavy menstrual bleeding is a common concern, most women don't experience blood loss severe enough to be defined as menorrhagia. With menorrhagia, you can't maintain your usual activities when you have your period because you have so much blood loss and cramping. If you dread your period because you have such heavy menstrual bleeding, talk to your doctor. There are many effective treatments for menorrhagia. So I was diagnosed with this, so I forgot to mention that. So my original OBGYN, she diagnosed me with this, but I wasn't having cramping. I wasn't in any pain, you guys. I was just having blood in between, just a lot of in between bleeding, right? Okay, so the symptoms, signs and symptoms of menorrhagia may include soaking through one or more sanitary pads or tampons every hour for several consecutive hours, needing to use double sanitary protection to control your menstrual flow. I didn't really have those issues, but I did recently, and we're going to get to that. So, needing to wake up to change sanitary protection during the night, bleeding for longer than a week. Now I had that. Passing blood clots larger than a quarter. I recently had that. I didn't have that in the beginning. Restricting daily activities due to heavy menstrual flow. Symptoms of anemia such as tiredness, fatigue, or shortness of breath. So please look this up, you guys, because it's so important. Now, like I said, I wasn't having any pain. I wasn't having any cramping. My cramps, like menstrual cramps, pretty much stopped when I had my first kid back in 2003. So, but recently, okay, so fast forward, we're in the year 2020, real quick. 2020, I forgot to write it down, but I experienced heavy bleeding and super huge blood clots, you guys. It was so scary. But I wasn't bleeding to the point where I was like weak or it was life threatening. It was just heavy, more than usual, like for me, heavy bleeding. I never had to wear Super and Super Plus tampons. I always had just regular or just a thin maxi pad if I needed like extra protection. So pretty much last year during this 3-month period, this 3-month period of time that I was bleeding and with these heavy clots, put it this way, I had each of those months I experienced my menstrual cycle, but then I kept bleeding, and it was heavy bleeding, heavier than normal bleeding, and huge blood clots that I have never ever experienced before, like ever in my life. So this was last year. Okay, so excuse me. Okay, so I forgot what months they were. I meant to note that down, but maybe it was just too much. It was a lot going on last year as well, right? Because of the shutdown and everything. So this to me was like a big red flag. And I didn't go to the doctor, which I should have. But it didn't work out that way. So, we can't get that time back. But looking back on, I knew something was up because these clots were huge, okay? And it was freaking me out because I just never experienced these clots like this before. So, and for 3 months straight, it ended. My period, I was having like normal periods, but still was having the in-between bleeding between periods. Okay. Fast forward, 2021, right? April 3rd, we were planning this family vacation. We went to Arizona. We really wanted to go see the Grand Canyon. It was so beautiful. The drive was so beautiful. We don't travel much. And it was just something that we really wanted to do. And I knew my period was coming because I have this period app on my phone. And I try to base things now that I've been keeping. And that's another good thing. Keep track of your period. Take notes because this information is really helpful, especially when you need to see your doctor for whatever reason. So I like this period app called Flow. Oh, let me see. Trying to close something out. Okay, so it's called Flow. I'll leave the link down below for you guys. So right now it's telling me my ovulation starts in 2 days, okay? And so I will be ovulating. And ovulation, I'm learning more about that too. It's so important to know about your body, ladies, and to understand the anatomy and everything. Like, so I will be ovulating for 2 weeks, and it's warning me that ovulation starts in 2 days, right? So, wait, is this correct? No, we're in the okay, so I must be looking at this wrong. Can you guys see this? Probably not. Okay, never mind. But it tells you the dates in red. That's the days of your period. And you can actually put notes into what your period days. And then you could put down, like, if you're spotting, if you're having heavy bleeds, like whatever, all types of notes you can add, okay? And so today's the 22nd, right? Oops, sorry. Today's the 22nd. Saturday, May 22nd. So I'm actually, this is my cycle day 16. Okay, so, okay, but I just really love this app. But anyway, I don't want to get, I'll leave the link so you guys can check it out. So my next expected period will be June 8th through the 14th. So, back in April, we were planning this trip, and we really wanted to go and get away. We really needed this trip, you guys. And so we packed up and we went, and I knew my period was coming, and I started my period, and that was the beginning of April. So from April 4th through the 10th was my normal cycle. But you guys, I kept bleeding and bleeding and bleeding and bleeding, okay? I took notes here. I was having clots. And then towards the end, before I went to the doctor, because I wound up going to the emergency room again, the clots were, okay, just put it this way, 24 hours before I went to the ER. Hi everybody, so I have to pause the video really quick. My husband came in, he was making breakfast. It's still pretty early, you guys, so I decided, okay, this video is past 20 minutes, so what I'm gonna do is just end this video right here. I'm gonna be making a part 2 to my testimony of this wonderful miracle that God gave me, because I know this only came from God. It's only through him, and God is still doing miracles. That's why I want to share this testimony. I know that's why I'm supposed to, because God is a miracle worker. He still does miracles to this day. And man, this has really just broadened my faith, just increased my faith, uplifted me even more, my faith towards God, because I owe it to him. I give credit to the Father while I'm here sitting talking to you guys and not laying in my bed recovering from a surgery. But I'm going to tell you guys exactly the rest of the details in part 2. So God bless you guys. I'll see you guys in another video. Bye.